This morning we dived into the essentials of food waste reduction and learned about the power of consumer influence and the importance of measurement and reporting. Let's carry that on into the afternoon. But as I said, think about it through the lens of the heart, because it's key, it's critical. More data isn't the only thing that's going to get this message and amplify the story we need to get out there. So this afternoon we're starting with a session titled Food Waste, Challenges of Tomorrow and What You Need to Consider Today. This session will explore forward-looking strategies and the emerging challenges we face as we continue to tackle food waste. Now, to guide us through, we have Sam Oakden, the Acting Industry Action Director of Industry Action at End Food Waste Australia. Sam, get up here. No, I love that. You could have got here from home in that time. Sam brings a wealth of experience and a keen insight into the systemic approaches needed to address food waste effectively. So please, he's already here. Give Sam a big round of applause.
All right, thanks Costa, thanks for the intro. I have the privilege of leading an incredible team that delivers our industry action programs. This is going to be a fascinating session, and I have the job of bringing the energy after that post-lunch slumber that Costa talked about. So I'm going to do my best. We have a fabulous panel with three very unique perspectives on the food system, how it's evolved, how it needs to evolve. We're going to get a glimpse into the future and hear how policy shifts in Europe are driving innovation for food manufacturers and the food system at large in Europe. We're going to hear what can be aspired to if you have a clean slate, no food waste policy at all, but a motivated and influential group of champions and a vision for food system transformation. And we're going to get a local perspective on the art of the possible, innovation and capturing value from surplus food. So that's probably enough from me. Our first guest today is Jolanda Dings. Jolanda is the Director of Sustainability and External Relations from Weston. She's based in Breda in the Netherlands and has been with Weston since 2001. She initiated the Sustainability Strategy Program for Europe in 2011 and has led the implementation and sustainability reporting. She chairs the sustainability committees of the Dutch Food and Drink Industry Federation and of the European Potato Processors Association. Is a member of the European Potato Processors... No, sorry, that was wrong. A member of the Platform on Food Loss and Waste on behalf of EUPA, and studied a long time ago, Jolanda, at Wageningen University in the Netherlands. 20 years in quality assurance and regulatory affairs and the past 14 years in sustainability. Please join me in welcoming Jolanda Dings.
So my first time to Australia, it's really fantastic. So thanks for the invitation. I was invited about a year ago by Steve. And actually, I met Steve for the first time in 2015 when I was invited to do the talk in Paris for the OECD. My introduction has been done. I was born on a farm, farmer's daughter, grew up on a farm, studied in Wageningen. So my passion and my heart is really in the food industry also. And my passion is, of course, also quality, but also in sustainability. That's really where my passion is. Do I click the slides myself or somebody does? Okay, get here. Yeah. So my story actually is how to valorize food loss and waste. I will not talk a lot about a company. The only thing I want to say is McCain's, likely you know. It's number 1 globally. Weston is number 2. We produce French fries in all kinds of sizes. We mainly produce frozen potato products, and in the Netherlands or in Europe we also produce dehydrated potato flakes. The company was founded in 1950. We have 28 plants globally, of which 3 very small ones actually just south of Melbourne, which I visited yesterday. We deliver products in over 100 countries. This is a Weston value chain, input, output, business impact. Just to take a few highlights, we work with a lot of farmers. In Europe, 650. And in total globally, so for the 28 plants to produce these French fries, we use potatoes from 270,000 hectares. We produce 95 million portions per day globally, employ 10,000 people, and what I said, 28 factories in 8 countries we have operations, and over 100 countries where we sell. We started reporting actually very transparently, not because anybody asked us to do so, but because we thought it's important in Europe already in 2010. So we had already 7 separate sustainability reports. It's going to be mandatory in Europe in next year actually. But this is actually, we just launched our first truly global report. So Weston in the US had a global report. They report annually. And maybe also relevant to know, we are the only stock-listed company globally in our sector. Mainly companies in the potato processing are family businesses. So this is a first truly global report, of which EMEA is now part of it. We have 3 pillars: people, planet, and food. And we also reset our goals. We have global commitments for 2033. They were first for 2030, but we are now truly global. The EMEA business became just 1.5 years ago part of the Global and Weston Group. And one of the commitments is also to reduce food waste by 50%. We were already committed to that in Europe, but now we're also committed globally, and we're really firm about this. So how do we do this? Well, actually, it's quite simple. It's about zero waste mindset. And we process in Europe 1.7 million tons of potatoes. So that's 1.7 million kilos. And the potatoes are basically all used. We don't waste any potato. Do they all go into food? No, that's not. So, but the first thing is utilize the whole potato. And waste is the other side of the coin. So together they're 100%. And when you peel potatoes, we sell about 20% of our products skin on, 80% is sold skin off. So you have unavoidable waste. We call it side streams or byproducts. And we try to destine these to the highest possible value. And my personal motto, growing up on the farm, mixed farm, everything which has nutritional value should be used to feed people, to feed animals, or turned into bio-based, and not even go into a biodigester. Because with biodigesters, they're heavily subsidized in Europe. It's either use them or lose them. So once you have them, you want to earn back your investment, and you lose the opportunity to destinate this food for humans, to feed humans or to feed people, or to feed animals, or to turn into bio-based. So that's our true belief. We developed this strategy and contacted Twan Timmermans already back in 2012, I think it was, to talk about definition. We did a study in 2013 about food waste in the total chain, so from the farm until the consumer, until our customer. And that's also where we wanted to look into what do we lose, where do we lose it, why do we lose it, and how can we, and is there actually a business case? Because food waste, it has been said before, it's also about losing money. So what you don't waste, you don't need to buy, you don't need to process, you don't need to water, you don't need the energy to process. So there is absolutely a clear business case to reduce food waste. And indeed, it has been said before, it all starts with measuring, because you can only measure, you can only manage what you measure, and you get actually what you measure. So we monitor, we have a track record of 15 years, we track it since 2008. And actually what this infographic is telling you, that if you take the 1.7 million tons of potatoes as a whole, the 100%, about 60% of it goes into fries or into potato flakes. About 1/3, it's quite consistent because we've been tracking it quite a long time. Between 20 and 25%, we're actually at 23% of the total volume. So we're talking about 370,000 tons just for Europe, the 6 plants we have in Europe. That's a side stream. The majority is potato peels. There's also some soil, which comes in with the potatoes. There's white starch, there's gray starch, there's some slivers and nubbins, but it also includes actually the starches, which we lose through the gutter, through the water system. We get them out, and it has a true value. We get a lot of money for it. I'll come back on that later. So this is actually the strategy. We call it the Moorman ladder. It was a scientist from Wageningen University. It's kind of the inverse pyramid. And the strategy is quite simple. The first thing is to prevent. Make sure you use your raw materials for the products, which is the core of your company you're intended to produce. If that's not possible, we have also a lot of innovations. So for example, all the potatoes, all the slivers, the nubbins, the pieces with defects, they go into a flake line. So the flake line actually helps us to not spoil, to use as much as possible of the potatoes. So prevention is the first thing. Then if you cannot prevent, then try to reduce it where possible. And if you cannot reduce, then the unavoidable waste streams, or side streams as we call them, we try to valorize them as high as possible. And anything, that's also the definition in Europe. So anything which is edible, which for me includes also the peels. So first you take everything, you measure that, then you register along to certain codes where all your side streams go, or how much it is and where they go. And anything that is not used of these side streams, so the 370,000 tons just for Europe, what's not used for food, for feed, or for bio-based materials, you have to register as food waste. So that means also the gray starch now going to the wastewater treatment, that's food waste. And we destine as least as possible into the biodigester. Well, definition, simply in scope, out scope, everything which is owned farms, we also track. But the majority is, of course, it's the waste in the processing. So it starts when the potatoes are coming in until basically the product is sold. And it includes also returns and complaints coming back from customers. It does not include the waste with our customers. For example, we deliver to McDonald's, Burger King, a lot of restaurants, retail. That waste is not included in our numbers. This we developed actually while setting the global goals. So as Weston, a global company, because and the people here from manufacturing, they will absolutely recognize it. We always say we're not a museum, so we cannot store all these side streams. You have to get rid of it on a daily basis. So we need to give our plants peace of mind. So you need to be we need 100% clearance of our waste and side streams on a daily basis. So the rest basically I mentioned already. It's prevent, it's reduce, reuse, valorize to the highest possible destination, and then learn and implement best practices. Some examples, I mentioned already one, skin-on products. In 2013, we sold about 10% skin-on products. Currently, we're selling a little bit more than 20%. So we track this. You get what you measure. You can only manage what you measure, so it's all about monitoring. Then another one is dehydrated potato flakes. I also mentioned that it's just part of our whole business model, basically. So every single plant has a co-product line. I know also there are people from McCain in the room, so you can either have potato flakes, or you can make hash browns or chopped and formed lines. So all the potatoes not used for your main product, frozen potato product, fries, can go into another product. And this is one of the last few. I've 2 more slides, so if I get just 1 or 2 more minutes, my time is up, unfortunately. This I had to pull out, I had to wipe out the numbers, but I can give you some perspective. This is actually, for the people who don't know, this is called a Sankey diagram. This represents the 370,000 tons of volume. On 80% of the volume of our side streams, we actually get money, we get paid for it. And on 20%, we have to pay. And if you look at the value, the 20% of the volume of side streams we have to pay for, it represents 40% of the total value, and the 80% volume represents 60% of the total value. I was talking not about a few 100K, now we're talking here about millions. And everything which you are being paid for, that's just added to your bottom line. So there is such a clear business case that I cannot understand. We're working on this not because anybody asked, but because we believe in it. Why not more companies just track it, measure it, and then manage it? And it's quite simple. It's putting the target first. It's really target, measure, act. That's really the model. And I'm also quite proud. I chair the Sustainability Committee of the European Industry Association. It's called EUPA. I do the same for the Dutch food industry, and I've also taken our competitors along. As chair, you have a little influence on the agenda. And we actually, as Dutch food industry, Dutch potato processing industry, we have tracked and also shared anonymously. We put in all the data in a tool developed by Wageningen University. They're actually paid by the Dutch government, so it doesn't cost us anything, just the time to put in our numbers. And also all the competitors put in the numbers. They all have joined. We have now a track record of 3 years of food waste measurement in the Netherlands. And in the next EUPA meeting, which we will have in October, all the members agreed to do the same at European level. And I'm quite proud because I think we're at least one of the first in the Netherlands to measure at a sector level. And we will definitely be the first one to measure at European level. Just anonymously, so you know what your own number is, but you don't know the rest. But you can compare against your peers. So that's what we're going to do. We're measuring the 4th year now for the Netherlands. And we're going to start hopefully next year at European level. So that's what I wanted to tell you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jolanda. And we will hear more from Jolanda shortly when we get people up for questions. Feel free to
sit or get off?
Probably get off. Otherwise, you'll be sitting for a while. Politely. Thank you. Our next speaker is Kaitlin Dawson. Kaitlin is the Executive Director of the New Zealand Food Waste Champions 12.3. Kaitlin drives collaboration and action across food systems in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and is one of the great Australian exports. Kaitlin has entrenched herself in the waste minimisation sector for the past decade. She previously was a director of Reground, a Melbourne-based behaviour change and social enterprise, worked for Australian food pack signatory EMEA in its early days, helped launch Deliveroo in Australia, and has been a director of local charities serving community meals with surplus food. She is motivated when business, community and government intercept to realise meaningful and sustainable change. Welcome, Kaitlin.
Thanks very much. And yes, I may be an expert. That would mean you're an import, Sam. I think we've kind of swapped roles. So I will open saying kia ora, which is hello in New Zealand. And while I'm not a Kiwi, after living there for 3 years, it's hard not to adopt their beautiful Te Reo Māori language. So I am here today to take a really different perspective from Jolanda. If the Netherlands and Weston are up here, New Zealand is kind of really down here. And my organisation that I am leading is called New Zealand Food Waste Champions, and we are, as Sam said, driving action on food waste across the system. So we are doing that by connecting the sector, enabling industry action, and advocating for evidenced policy change. So today I've decided to highlight a few mechanisms that we've used over the past 3 years when I exported myself to New Zealand to get us from not having food waste on the agenda to really taking leaps and bounds on food waste reduction across the system. And I'm taking that approach because I believe the approach that we've taken and the framing that we've used is one that anyone in this room, any not-for-profit, any small business, any large corporate government agency can take, because we all are trying to enact change. And I think we're really lucky working on the topic of food waste reduction, because we're able to get on the same page as most people really quickly. Like Craig Rucastle said earlier, everyone agrees that we shouldn't waste food. Everyone thinks they don't do it, but that's another story. We can get on the page that we all agree we shouldn't waste food. So very quickly, we can start to build a social norm around food waste reduction, which is what we're trying to do in New Zealand. So a little bit of context as to where we are in New Zealand at the moment. I easily could have had a third pillar. This is talking about where we are now and where we need to be. And 3 years ago, we would not have had much in any kind of pillar on this slide, because food waste just honestly was not on the agenda. So now we have a food waste definition, which my organisation led the national consultation for. We're working on a national food waste baseline, so we literally have no data. I refer to Australian data all the time, which makes Kiwis really happy. But you can't do much without data, but it's coming. We have an incredibly thriving food rescue sector, and if you work in food rescue, I recommend you talk to Stu and Ian from Aotearoa Food Rescue Alliance. They're a membership organisation that food rescues are a part of. So that is a really integral fabric in the food waste reduction ecosystem. Recently, the government has invested $7.6 million in food waste reduction behaviour change campaigns and projects, which is a really sound investment for New Zealand, but it was done in a rather ad hoc manner. So there's lots of different projects flying around the place. We hardly talk to each other unless we facilitated ourselves. So there's a little bit to be desired there. And most recently, the Prime Minister's Chief Science Advisor delivered 27 key recommendations to government to reduce food waste across the system. I was lucky enough to host the event to deliver those recommendations 2 weeks ago in Auckland, and we had a room full of industry leaders from the food sector in the room, as well as government leaders. And I made the decision to fill the room with industry leaders because I'm not 100% sure that the government is going to take on those key recommendations at the moment, but I am sure that businesses are ready to take the mantle and have the responsibility to take that. So we had really important people in the room that were hearing the importance of driving food waste reduction across the system. So we've come a long way in 3 years from not having food waste on the agenda, but we still have so far to go. We don't have a food waste strategy. We don't have much in the way of policy. We don't have data. We need research. We need coordination across the system. And so 3 key mechanisms that we've used to get there are as follows. And I'm going to start at the end. So where we are now is connecting the sector of a really thriving ecosystem of food waste reduction. So like we have here, like you have here in Australia, there is a thriving ecosystem of solution providers, which we've mapped around the outside in the really simplified food system that you see on the screen. Solution providers enacting change, and then enablers around the middle. And I started mapping the food waste system when I moved to New Zealand, because I just wanted to understand what the gaps were and how this organisation could drive change by using those gaps. But I quickly learnt that not many people understood what was happening in the food waste ecosystem, including those working within it. Because, as I'm sure many of you know, food waste reduction is born out of a need for change. And so the amazing community groups having incredible impact and the national businesses having incredible impact don't often have capacity to look up and understand who's working alongside them. Are they pulling in the same direction of the others, or are they duplicating work? So this ecosystem map we delivered in March this year, and the response was incredible. People were really interested in seeing a visualization of the work that they've been doing and who they might be able to collaborate with. So the intention for this is to become an open source, interactive resource where we can foster greater collaboration, we can access better data, we can minimize duplication, we can help the funders in the middle there, which there aren't really enough of yet, but help them understand what's happening and what they don't need to fund and what they do need to fund. So that's us trying to build the social norm of food waste reduction across the system. The second key mechanism is, of course, activating industry. So 1.5 years ago, we launched Kai Commitment. In New Zealand, Kai means food. Kai is food. And so Kai Commitment is a voluntary agreement, not too dissimilar from the Australian Food Pact. And when we launched, we had the then Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, launch it for us, but we did not have multi-year support from the government. We didn't have that funding, and we weren't a key partner of government. But what we did have was a coalition of the willing. We had 4 of New Zealand's largest businesses committed to this voluntary agreement. We now have 8 of New Zealand's largest businesses committed to action. And I really differentiate between commitment and action, because for me, they are very different things. And in Kai Commitment, the businesses are acting on food waste reduction. And I've pulled out a quote that you don't have to read now. I'm sure these slides will be somewhere at some point, from the head of sales and marketing at Goodman Fielder in New Zealand. At the event that we hosted 2 weeks ago, we had all of our signatories on the stage showcasing some of the action they're taking. And he identified that conversations between Goodman Fielder and a key retailer have changed dramatically over the past year, thanks to Kai Commitment, because they used to be about cost, and now they're about food waste. And as you can imagine, having a conversation that's driven by cost is dramatically different to the approach that you take, to the energy that comes to the room, and the direction in which you're both going, to one that is about food waste. So I was really proud to hear that Kai Commitment is facilitating that. And a key reason I think that is because we've baked in collaboration from the very beginning. So we use the Target Measure Act framework, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, and we tweaked it a little bit at the beginning, understanding that our businesses were really ready to commit to working together with the cohort, but also working together with their supply chain. So I'm proud that 83% of them believe that they will influence food waste reduction across their supply chain, which is the real goal for me. They're all reducing their own food waste. It makes sense. They're saving money. But building the social norm of food waste reduction is where we have to work with our supply chains. And so we're about to embark on our first collaborative project as a cohort, mapping bread across the supply chain. But this image is actually about the emissions of bread. And we've heard it today about embodied emissions and upstream emissions. And the approach we're really trying to take in New Zealand is changing the framing of food waste to be about what the food was meant to be, not about the waste it became. And people, businesses are not yet understanding that it is important to keep food out of landfill, and the emissions that it generates in landfill are extremely important. And I mean, Jolanda said it, Tuan said it, in Europe they don't even mention landfill. It's not a consideration. So of course we have to get it out of landfill. But 94% of the emissions from a loaf of bread, it would be more with dairy, more with beef, every product that we create, come before it ends in its waste destination. So we must change our thinking about the food that it was meant to be, not the waste it became. And the third mechanism that we used, and this is coming back to our inception, back to the beginning, was we had a group of champions of 12.3, and we modelled this off the group that we've heard about, that Steve is a part of. And this was a group of passionate people, leaders from across the supply chain, that a few years ago got together and identified food waste reduction was important. You don't need to know who's in the group, but it's important for context that around this table, when I'm facilitating a round table, I so quickly understood that no one is on the same page really with how we're going to get to our destination. No one is necessarily on the same page with even what food waste is or what should be done with it. We have anaerobic digestion, we have food rescuers, we have researchers, we have community, we have a lot of perspectives at the table. And when we're talking about our Kai Commitment signatories or everyone on that ecosystem map, it's important to have those different perspectives at the table, but it's really important that we acknowledge that we're all aligned in our vision of getting rid of food waste. So I think in the last 3 years, we've had a really big 3 years, and we've been able to make some huge strides because we found the commonality. I have a really small team. We have a government that's not yet willing to set any policy, but we have a coalition of the willing, and I'm really keen to continue to collaborate with End Food Waste Australia and everyone in this room to continue on the global movement of the social norm of food waste reduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaitlin. I think we can all agree the progress in a very short amount of time and what NZ Champions have been able to do is inspiring. I think that ecosystem map, every time I see it, I think we need it. So there's an opportunity there for Australia. So we've been around the world. Before we get that, before we go there, a quick heads up and reminder, please put your questions into the app because we want to answer your questions, not the ones that I've prepared, I assure you. We've been to Europe, we've been across the Tasman, we're now going to go across state borders. Edwina Beveridge is the owner of Blantyre Farms, a highly productive mixed farming and livestock business near Young in New South Wales, incorporating broadacre cropping, wheat, barley, canola with beef, wool, lamb and an indoor piggery. We're mostly going to hear about the piggery because some very exciting innovation around utilisation of food waste. Established in 2007, Blantyre Farms provides employment for 40 staff, injecting $2.2 million directly into their local community. Edwina.
Thanks, Sam. After following all these clever women that have been speaking, I thought I'll just dumb it down a little bit. I'm starting with a Homer Simpson quote. Homer Simpson said an animal that could produce bacon, ham and pork chops must be a magical animal. Imagine how blown away he'd know if he knew that we could produce bacon, ham and pork chops with recycled food waste and creating renewable energy at the same time. So here's a picture of our farm. We have 2,000 sows. Anyone not particularly agricultural, that's mother pigs. On average, every day of the week, we have about 20,000 pigs on hand, and we sell 40,000 pigs a year. We have 2 different sites. All our pigs are indoors. Another lovely picture inside one of our grower sheds. I think people have a bad perception of what pig sheds might look like. As you can see, it looks pretty nice. I'm there working hard, not posing for a photo. I'd love to show you a very quick video, so fingers crossed this works, which gives a beautiful view of some of the things we do on our farm. I really love what we do. It is fantastic to be producing something that I know is sustainable and is really, good for the world, and to be doing our bit. So we've set up a system where we can capture our methane gas from our pig manure and turn it into electricity. It's fantastic because that was our 4th biggest cost, and we have now completely eliminated that and turned it into a revenue item. We also feed our pigs a lot of food waste. That's pretty exciting because it saves us buying a lot of grain. Last year we used 13,500 tonnes of food waste products, so things that would have otherwise gone to landfill. We can produce a lot of pork at a very affordable price. We can do it without a huge amount of land, using food waste, recycling our manure, even making our own electricity. So I think farms like ours are the answer to food security. My disclaimer is my husband does work with us on our farm, as do a lot of our wonderful staff. None of them made it to the video. My husband didn't show up on the day the video was coming. So that's his fault. You can also probably tell I'm an accountant by trade, so I love the idea that we could, really focusing on cost is always a big part of our business. But onto the food waste part. We use a lot of food waste on our farm, as you saw a little bit in the video. We probably use 7 or 8 different streams of food waste. Mostly it comes out of food processing. Every day we get a semi-trailer load and a half of milk or juice that has gone past its use-by date or is not fit for human consumption. That comes on pallets, in milk bottles, in orange juice containers, all sorts of different packaging, and we unpack it and feed it to our pigs. We have 2 unpacking lines. One is a wet one and the other a dry one. We've been doing that for a long time. We started using food waste probably 20 years ago. It keeps growing and growing, and we're getting better and better at it. And these unpacking lines, the dry unpacking line is very new. We've only been doing that for a couple of years. We also use, you can see in that picture, day-old bread. So I'm sure a lot of you in the room know more about what happens to bread once it hits the supermarket and isn't sold. We probably use 30 to 40 tonnes of bread every week feeding our pigs. Sometimes we unpack that out of bread bags. We're not doing that perfectly, but I'm hoping in another 12 months we'll really have that process nailed. We also use a mustard waste, so that is kind of a slurry bulk waste. We use waste that comes, as I was saying, from milk cartons to a 250 gram packet of pasta that we can get out of its plastic bag. We could also unpack flour, rice, spaghetti. Spaghetti's a nightmare. Penne is much easier. All sorts of products. Really, we can use all sorts of things. Some of them come in the little packets. Some come in bulker bags. Some come in skip bins that tip off. We love them. That's really easy. And some of it in semi-trailers that just tip out. We have a nutritionist who helps us balance our diets to make sure that we're still giving our pigs the nutrition they need, and we juggle around the byproducts. Unfortunately, we don't get to order them, they just arrive, and so we have to cope with the flow, which can sometimes go from 2 trucks a week to 20 trucks the next week. I've also forgot one other product in there that is on my list. We use fish fillet waste and fish fingers as well, which we feed our pigs. We probably get about 20 to 30 tonnes of that every week. So our pigs are getting fed a pretty wide variety of a diet. Mostly it goes to our grower pigs, not our sows. I often say a grower pig's a bit like a teenage boy. It will eat anything. But it is all balanced. We have some disasters as well. Sometimes we take one-offs. We try not to do that too often unless it fits easily. I once said I would take 70 pallets of ganache. I had to go and Google what ganache was. If you don't know, it's icing. And it came in like 30-litre buckets, I think. And I thought, oh, that'll be right. We'll tip them up and that'll be fine. And the cost was good. I'm the accountant. Tipped up the first bucket. Ganache stayed in the bucket. I think we had to angle grind the buckets off the ganache in the end, and I still haven't been forgiven about 5 years later. We've had some lovely accolades. This is my boast. You saw the picture of our methane digester, where we make our own electricity. We provide enough electricity to power our own farm, and we sell the excess back to the grid. We were the first farm in Australia registered with the Clean Energy Regulator about 12 or 13 years ago. I say I'm the first carbon farm in Australia. There was one project registered ahead of me, but they were landfill gas, so I say I'm the first farm. We have recently done a benchmarking program with our industry body on life cycle assessment. We had the lowest carbon footprint of any pig farm in Australia or any pig farm in the benchmarking. I presume all the good ones were in it. I think it was shown, Craig showed earlier the carbon footprint of different meat products. Had beef and lamb up at about 20 kilos of carbon dioxide equivalent. Our farm, or the pork we produce on our farm, is about 1.3. So we are very nearly carbon neutral without offsetting anything, just doing it ourselves, which is a story we're very proud of. As also some lovely prizes we've had, which is really nice to get the recognition for all the hard work that we do. Now there are a few things, my beautiful son, whose name is Sam, I'm even recycling the overalls, they were hand-me-downs. There was a few, and he's a bit bigger than that now too, I hate to say, nearly the teenage boy stage now where he'll eat me out of house and home. I haven't talked about pigs. Pigs themselves are the most wonderful recyclers. A pig is a monogastric. It has one stomach just like us. It will eat anything. It is illegal for us to feed them meat. We don't want to feed them any meat either because they might catch a disease if there is any disease in that meat, but we can feed them rendered meat. What is used with the pig? Someone asked a question earlier in the day about what about offal? Should we be eating offal? Do not worry, the offal is not wasted. The offal is all exported overseas, a lot of it to Asia where it's considered a delicacy, so you don't have to worry. No one has to go and tuck into a pig's kidney tonight. The joke in the pig industry is nothing is wasted but the squeal. Everything is used in the pig. On our farm, the most waste we have is really what comes in our, in the kitchen office, in the office lunchroom and things like that. We have very little waste on the farm. So I would say, and Craig did say earlier about the message, around at the moment is to eat less meat. I say that's wrong. You should eat more pork because we have such a lower carbon footprint than the other meats. But also, I do grow lamb and beef as well, but we really have a fabulous low footprint. We're doing it using food waste. We're doing everything we can. So don't feel bad about eating meat. Just eat some more pork. And that is the message I'd like to leave you with. That's how to fix food waste. Just eat more pork because we're doing it for you already. Thank you.
Time flies when you're having fun. I see they've extended our session slightly, so we'll try and go pretty quick fire through this. I think, Edwina, we'll start with you. I think you've done incredible work taking food that's unsaleable, some potentially inedible, and turning that into a valuable, edible human food. What do you need, and what does the industry need in order to be able to continue to scale and more of the industry do what you've been able to do?
Right, it's a question actually our industry grapples with a lot, and we're often held up to be the poster child of using food waste. It's not easy. We feed our pigs wet product, so it comes into the pig troughs looking like porridge. Most people feed them what looks like muesli, so it's very different handling. It's dry food is augered and stored in silos. That pretty much eliminates food waste because it's hard to handle. With the wet feed that we use, we have a different feed system. It's a German system that we use, and the feed is kept in tanks or different type of storage. So it sort of opened up a new world when we started doing that. So it's not easy to go and change your feed system in a pig farm. You actually have to change every single pen in every single shed. So that's one of the, barriers to entry or things that is holding people back. Does that kind of cover it? The industry, I don't know that we need anything more. We can use the feed that we want to. It's sometimes hard to find the feed, so hence why I'm here today. It's great to have a lot of, hopefully, food suppliers who might be thinking, gee, I'll give Edwina a call. But, that's one of the other challenges is finding the right source of a food waste product.
It's great. And there's your call to action, food manufacturers. If you're looking for a destination that is a non-food waste destination by definition.
I would like to add one thing. I forgot to tell of that big volume of food waste we have in Europe. 70% goes to animal feed, and it's all used to feed pigs.
Fantastic.
Pig is a magical animal.
Changing tack slightly, Kaitlin, you mentioned the term building a social norm around reducing food waste. Where do we start?
Gosh. I'm certainly no expert. I've just had to be really resourceful in the last few years and honestly, it was actually a few weeks ago in the Netherlands when I saw the power of the social norm, I think, across the EU and businesses. I think Tuan mentioned this morning, we spoke to quite a few businesses there, putting it into or aligning it with their financing and with their KPIs, and that's just very unavoidable once it's baked into the business. So I think from my perspective, and I think it could be really interesting, broader discussion, but there's kind of three main elements that I've seen. One would be probably aligning and repeating key messages. So I think speaking the same language, if there's a consumer behavior change campaign happening here later in the year, and we know there are so many global food waste weeks and days, and we have Love Food Hate Waste campaign in New Zealand, and it's rather disjointed. I think having a repeat message means that behavior will change and will be adopted at every level. The push and the pull is extremely important. So we don't have regulation so much in New Zealand, but it is so important. And I think it's not going to come unless industry are somewhat ready for it. So that's what we're trying to build with Kai Commitment, a coalition of businesses that are ready and saying to government, we are acting on this and we're ready for more. And that's what we've seen in the UK and the EU. But also that pull from customers. When I'm speaking to our retailers in New Zealand, they listen to what the customers are saying. They listen to the voting with their note. It's not a gimmick. They will stock the shelves with what the customers pay for. And so I think those education campaigns have to work together with the businesses so there is the push and the pull. And I think language. We've actually heard a lot about it today, but I think that reframing of food as it should have been, not the waste it became, are a few things that everyone can kind of agree on and build that social norm, hopefully.
That's great. And I think there's a lot we can take here in Australia from that answer. I think the alignment of, we have a lot of activity. We have a lot of activity at state level. We have a lot of activity, through the federal level. In Food Waste Australia is doing a lot of work in a lot of different sectors, but bringing that together to build common language and a common understanding of where those opportunities align is the only thing that's actually going to shift the dial at scale.
Sorry, before you ask Jolanda a question, I probably should say collaboration. I think I don't like to labour the point because we all talk about collaboration, but really that's the fundamental piece. We will not build a social norm without working together in a pre-competitive environment. So I think, and that's, everyone's kind of on that page here, but outside of this room, it's how do we get those collaborating with us to build that. Apologies.
No, that's great. Jolanda, you've been on the collaboration, measurement, reporting journey for many years. I think based on your experience of public reporting, of embedding change within a large organisation, what would your advice be to an organisation at the start of that journey, or one that wants to investigate what it might look like for them? Where would they start?
Yeah, as I indicated, you only can manage what you measure, and actually you get what you measure. So, and set a target. So it actually started with us to make it first a priority, set a target, measure, and then act, and then just monitor and share learnings, learn from it. It's a journey, and it's the target, measure, act. What is also put out by New Zealand, by Australia, by REP in the UK. That's basically what it is, and making it a priority. And it's been said already multiple times today, if you save food, you save money. So how can businesses not make a priority of tracking this and putting a target and reducing it?
Fantastic. And I think, for those Australian businesses in the room, In Food Waste Australia is here. We heard from Nick about the data work that happens in the Australian Food Pact earlier. But give us a call. We are here to support Australian businesses and the whole supply chain to reduce your waste. It does start with Target Measure Act. I like Target Measure Act, collaborate. I think we need to collaborate better. I think also having been in Europe recently, that the culture of collaboration in Australia has a long way to go, and I think we can be at the forefront. When I say we, it's the royal we, it's everyone here that's invested in this cause, this triple bottom line opportunity that is, as Dana said, one of the world's dumbest problems, because it's infinitely solvable, but there is an opportunity to set targets, aspirational targets. Let's measure so we know what the opportunity is, we can quantify it and put dollars to it. And then get on with the acting, because 2030 is not very far away, and we've signed up to these targets. We need to be acting on them as much as we can. I didn't mean to go on that little rant, but here's our panellists who were supposed to do the talking. But we'll wrap up there. Target Measure Act, collaborate. I think that's the message from this session. Join me in thanking our wonderful panel.
Wow, what a great panel. Jolanda, you're just a hashtag bomb. I was taking notes there. I'm going to change T-shirts tomorrow and have a few of your burners on there. But Target, Measure, Act, and then you added share in the final part. Kaitlin, I like the fact that you're a baker. We baked in collaboration from the beginning. Okay, that wasn't that funny. Sounded it there in the dark. Now, can anyone tell me what her motto was for our organisation? You're not paying attention. Caitlin's one, it was up there. Where food is valued and not wasted. Okay, yeah, I saw it. All right, I'm not supposed to be saying anything in this other than getting the next panel underway. But I thought I'd just throw a couple of things in.